Today's video is dedicated to interior design embroidery. Here you see one of the embroidery designs that is included in our course on interior design on Charles & Elin Academy. Now in that course, in addition to receiving 3 different patterns that I've already designed, of which one you get a full stitch along process to practice, you also get sheets with different objects so that you can create your own dream home. And to help you to best embroider those different objects in your own designs, I'm dedicating this video to how to embroider a plant hanger. Because who wouldn't want to hang a plant hanger at home? It just adds that really nice touch to your wall or next to the sofa, as in this case. So let's dive right into it. First, you need your pattern, which is this plant hanger here. You find the pattern in the curriculum section in the Interior Design Embroidery course on Charles & Elin Academy. You then also need your threads. Here I'm using embroidery floss, Molinet embroidery floss from DMC. And I've chosen to have this soft beige color for the actual pot and these hanging construction here, these ropes that it's hanging in. And I'm using this varied floss for the greenery. To use a multicolored floss is a great tip when you want to create a natural variation on your leaves without having to change floss every single time. I'm also having here a needle. This particular needle is also from DMC actually. It's the 1-5. It's thin but long, just like I love it. In the course, I show you how to transfer the design with carbon paper, which is the technique that Charles and I love. We also have a video about that here on YouTube. We'll link that just below. But today, in this video, I'm actually going to just draw it out quickly here with just an erasable marker. This particular one is called Trick Marker. Then, of course, you also need to have a fabric. This one is a canvas blend with cotton and linen. I'm also using a wooden embroidery hoop. This particular one is roughly 10 centimeter in diameter. I believe that's 4 inches. And it's perfect size whenever you want to practice embroidering any of the individual objects. Now these are only a few selection of all the ones you have to choose from, but let's not overcomplicate it. We start with one today. I have now finished the drawing, and as you can see, I did not transfer or draw out all of the individual leaves. I only drew out the direction of the branches because the leaves, it's important that those are free. For you to be able to enjoy the embroidery process as much as possible, you should always leave yourself room for some free hand stitching. Then you will fully enjoy the process. And it's actually one of the reasons why we just love modern hand embroidery, for this free addition of stitches. All right, so you just transfer or draw out the branches. Now when we're going to start the embroidery process, there are a few things to keep in mind. Now, first of all, what comes first? The plant hanger comes before the plant, right? Because the plant is inside of the plant hanger. Now, what does that mean? It means that you want to embroider the plant hanger first, or at least before the plant. Another thing to keep in mind is what is the most back, like what is the farthest away from you as you are looking at this plant hanger. These 2 hanging ropes are actually behind these plants, whereas the one in the middle goes in front. It gives you the idea that this particular area here is in fact sort of a triangle. And it creates a space in between. This means now that you, just as much as you want to embroider what comes first, you also want to embroider what is the most far away from you first. In other words, we will embroider the plant hanger as well as these 2 ropes behind first, then the greenery, the actual plant, and last we do this detail of the rope in the middle, which comes the closest to you as you're looking to this. I have cut out roughly an underarm's length of floss here. of the light beige that I'm going to use for the actual plant hanger. And I'm going to use 2 strands. With the Molinet floss, you can separate it into 6. So I want to take out 2, and the best is that you separate them one by one. This will avoid that they tangle up together, and you can store the leftover floss on the side for you to use later on. Assemble them together. Thread the needle. And we're going to make a knot at the other end. We're going to embroider the contours of this plant hanger, and for that I will use the backstitch technique. I put my needle through up here in the left-hand corner of the pot part of the plant hanger. Make roughly a stitch length. So a stitch length is about 0.5 centimeter to 1 centimeter. Take up the needle, roughly a stitch length distance apart. Go back into the same hole. Therefore, the whole name of backstitch. Thereafter, you go, quote, back again, or rather front to the hole that you came from before, because we want to follow the line in this direction. You then start over, you make 1 stitch, take up your needle, a stitch length distance away, go back to the same hole, and then back to the hole in front. And to my help here, in case for those of you who are wondering, I'm using a small embroidery stand from Cloudcraft, and I will put the link to that in the description below as well. It's very convenient when you embroider these kind of smaller designs, as it's quite light and you can put it on top of your table, which is exactly what I've done here. For this line here in the middle of the pot, I want to align 3 rows of back stitches to make this particular part a little bit thicker. So the outer lines are essentially the contours of the shape of the pot, whereas this one in the middle helps, well, partly to be a detail, but also to make the pot stand out a little bit more. It serves as a support, is maybe better to say. Now, as we are working with free modern hand embroidery, please feel also free to split through some of these lines or stitches that you've done and add some split stitches on top to also add additional texture and volume. In modern hand embroidery, especially the interior design and the architectural embroidery that Charles and I do, you frequently combine several different techniques in one. The goal is to get a deeper understanding for what result you are looking for, and thereby which techniques, or rather technique combinations, that you can use to get there. Alright, I will attach my thread on the back side. As I'm using a natural color fabric, I'm not going to fill out the rest of the pot. So we move on now to the hanging section. I start in the bottom as I'm going to go up and down. To create a realistic feel of the hanging part here, I'm going to use the chain stitch. You put it through, you go back just next to where you put it up. You keep the loop, put a finger through the loop, for example. Take up your stitch a short distance away. If you want to keep a tight chain, which is what I want here, you put the needle through the loop or put the loop on top of the needle, however you find it easier, and you pull. All right, let's repeat that process. You go back next to where you just came out, leave a loop and put your finger through, take up your needle, short distance away and through the loop, and pull. You will quickly see how you start to create a chain looking pattern here. The pot of the plant hanger is completed, and we will now get started on the branches of the plant. We will do that with two-stranded, the multicolored thread that I showed you in the beginning, and I'm going to use the split stitch for this. The split stitch starts with a regular stitch, and then I split through towards the front of the stitch. So I do one stitch and then split through, not through the same hole because then you will undo your stitch. You go through the stitch just really close to the hole. And when you reach curves such as here, you can keep the pattern next to you in case you want to have a reference. For the curve, be sure to shorten your stitches and you will be able to capture a much smoother curve. I will make a traveling line. And start on the second branch. You can see now why it was so good that we did the pot before, because it's much easier to embroider these branches on top of the stitches than having to leave space for where these would go afterwards. With the branches done, we are going to continue now and finalize with all of the leaves. So how to embroider leaves? Well, I've already gotten started here. The most important to think about is the direction that the leaves grow, because that will guide the direction of your stitches. So start by putting through on your branch, you're splitting through, and make a stitch out as a leaf. You then go a little bit back, split through the branch, and make a stitch as a leaf out. Go back to the beginning of that stitch and make a second one overlapping into the same hole. In this way, you're creating a little bit of extra volume to your leaf as well. After that, it's really about just repeating the process and enjoying the ride. Alright, the plant in the plant hanger is now completed, and you can see how effective it is when everything is done while using the multicolored floss. It looks just absolutely gorgeous, if I can say so myself. Now the last part of this plant hanger is to do this third hanging rope here. And as you remember from the beginning, I said that we will do that last because that one goes in front of the leaves. So let's go. We'll use the chain stitch again, just like we did for the other ropes. So you take it up a little distance away, pull it through the loop, and pull. Little distance away, through the loop, and pull. We have now completed this wonderfully cute plant hanger. I really hope that you enjoyed the process of stitching this with me, and thank you for following along the whole process of this design. As I mentioned in the beginning, this is just one of the many objects that you get to stitch in the course Interior Design Embroidery that we have on Charles Nelson Academy. We will put the link to that just below this video in case you're curious to learn more about it, and hopefully you'd like to join us in the course. The way you have followed along with us today in a overhead format where it's almost like you are having my eyes in a way, that is how we love to structure our courses, for you to be able to see as clearly as possible and to get as much detailed information for you to go out and feel confident in your next stitching project. The course includes 3 full designs that are already made, as well as learning how to create your own interior design embroidery, and you don't have to know how to draw. Check it out just below.